Watch party lectures, a way to boost engagement. Now, this is not a silver bullet, but this is in fact something you can do to activate your videos, whatever style they are, particularly in this sort of post-COVID hybrid space where students may not be dialing in, or students might not be actually coming into the class. It doesn't matter where you are. So you can do watch parties online or in person. I particularly like the idea of watch parties in person. And you can, if you have a look down here, it's this, what I'm talking about today is something that I put into a recent blog piece. I'll just post that into the chat here now. I think this is the right one. No, I think that's the link to the
So I can post in the chat if you like.
That's all right. I've got it straight off my slide. There we are. So that's the blog post if you want to sort of have a look on the side or read a bit more later, because it's going to go into more detail in a different way to what I'm doing today. All right. So for some of you here, you might have heard the term watch party and be thinking, what the hell is a watch party? Well, let's leave the lecture bit out of it for now and think about what it is. It's been around for a while. In the simplest terms, it's a bunch of people getting together to watch something together in real time. They could be physically located or they could be doing it online. In fact, during COVID, a lot of services like Amazon, Twitch and so forth, Discord, a lot of that kind of thing was happening. People would get together from their own homes and watch a video in synchronization. I'm not really talking about the technical process or how to do those things. In fact, we're moving, some of that services has been cut back. I think Amazon Prime has turned off their watch party, or Facebook has turned off their watch party feature. But the real essence is lots of people getting together, a bit like these cool folk here who all dressed up and watched Game of Thrones together. You know, that's the kind of thing I'd probably do. So you can see it's a very social or activated social environment for video content. So immediately when you're watching something with other people, it's like going to the movies on your own or watching a video movie with friends. It's a very different experience. And sometimes those discussions that shape around that content, because it is social, adds a lot more meaning, a lot more depth to that experience. So that takes us on to the idea of a watch party lecture. Now, what on earth is that? Well, it's kind of a symptom of COVID and lockdowns, to be honest. It's probably been around in some form or other, but there's one particular paper which I'm going to paste into the chat now, which you could look up if you wish, that really I based my blog piece around. And that's the research paper where they did something in Glasgow University. I think it's Glasgow University, where again, you can see on screen if you're reading that text, that's an edited abstract on that paper. The essence being that they decided to create an actual lesson or active learning context around the process of watching a video. There's also this tweet from back then. So it became very popular. There was lots of activity I noticed in some places on Twitter and whatever around about, I don't know, you can see there in early to mid 21, in the midst of COVID. A lot of people got interested in the idea of this watch party lecture. You know, how could we take advantage of this? How can we do this in our own subjects? Oops, and I don't know why that's happened because I clicked on the wrong thing. Let's go back. It wouldn't be authentic if I didn't have a little technical hiccup. Now, I'm not going to play this video. I suggest you go there, and on that basis, I'm going to place that link. You can have a look again yourself, perhaps after this, to see one of the people who the co-authors on that paper talk about it in video form for about 6 minutes on YouTube, and their own description of this. I'm giving you my take on this today. But it's a way they dealt with keeping students engaged, particularly during that delicate time during remote learning when you couldn't tell, for starters, whether half the students were actually there listening to your lecture or taking anything in. Maybe they were doing the ironing. There's this term called, the laundry test. If your students can be folding the laundry while watching your lecture, your video lecture, then there's something wrong. They don't actually need to be fully focused on it. So how does that really work in these processes? What are the key points that I extracted from reading that paper, looking things up and thinking about this and bothering to write that blog in the first place? Well, in effect, you're watching your own lecture recording with students. That might seem weird at first. You think, oh, I want to just deliver the lecture. Well, the important thing is what it does is it takes you out of that kind of, and for some people, that anxious performative space into one where you can sit with your students in a comfortable way. You put all the hard work in, you've got that perfect video recording, if we can call it perfect. And now you can think about all the things around the periphery. You can socially engage with your own students in the process of watching that, and you can up the ante by adding lots of other elements to it. And there's that feedback that we were talking about before. Now, it doesn't have to be lecture recordings. It could be, a piece of entertainment. It could be a video of some kind, but, obviously copyright and DRM comes into play there. I don't think you can play, for instance, a video off a DVD that's copyright protected through Zoom or through Teams because the digital rights management is recognized by the software. I haven't tested that, but I think that might happen. But otherwise, you can show a video on Zoom with your students and watch that. Now, the important thing is that you focus on interactivity by creating activities. And I actually mentioned them in my long-winded question stroke answer, my response to Rachel earlier. I touched on a lot of these things already in what I was saying. It's about leveraging the video, adding stuff around it to actually bring it to life and make students think more about what's in the video. What does it mean going forward? Does it change my view of things that I understand or have been exposed to before? The other thing about a watch party, if we take that format, the opportunity it provides is particularly a theme that has been dealt with a lot and is still very relevant and has probably taken on a life of its own and become part of many people's teaching now. Also, that came out of the remote teaching period is the idea of teacher presence, belonging, and inclusivity. By simply engaging and being with your students, a co-participant, in fact, a lot more engagement is just generated out of that, including kind of the students seeing you as an authentic participant in the experience, as opposed to giving them a job to do. Here's a video, watch it and do this quiz. An obvious thing is the students will probably learn more on top of what you are hoping they will learn just by being in proximity to their colleagues. It's the very nature of social learning and being engaged in those ways. They will chat with each other if they're either physically present or online in a simultaneous or back channel of some kind in Teams or their social media channel, Discord, whatever it happens to be. It also provides you, remember, this is a two-way thing. And this is where feedback becomes real in terms of instant response and reaction, both for the students in these face-to-face environments. If you treat this video as a live experience, then suddenly you as a teacher can act upon those teachable moments that pop up, those unplanned things. As opposed to delivering information, suddenly a student asks a question that you hadn't actually considered, or something happens, or people, who knows what occurs in the process of interacting and watching there, that suddenly goes, hey, well, now we're talking about that. Let's explore that differently. And you press the pause button and off you go. Suddenly your lecture has gone beyond just simply watching something in linear time to something that branches off into related, interesting things. So what you're doing is keeping the whole thing active. And by its very nature, people are attentive and therefore, well, we hope, engaged. And you can tell they're engaged because they're asking questions, their cameras are on or something. I touched on already the idea of social learning. It's a thing. Now, Matt might distribute these slides to you later. These blue things, links, they're actually links. So with these slides in PDF form, you're about to click on those and see what I'm talking about when you click on those bits of blue text. So there's rapid feedback loops that this enables, and an idea of what makes something interesting and active. The process itself of having a watch party lecture, it means they can do all those learning things, those pedagogical things that we always talk about, not just watching the video, but suddenly, you know, either they can do it sort of during, they can do it after, but you can also flip this, why not? You could also get students to form groups, learning groups, where they have their own watch parties. I want group one to go and watch this video before class, and I want you all to do these particular tasks. And then you're going to, when we have our class, you're going to report back the key ideas you got from that, and you're going to involve them in a discussion, and all the groups are going to think about this. So you're really activating that video and going beyond just simply a piece of time where it's been played. Now, interestingly enough, I don't know if we can test this, but if all of this is happening, the chances are perhaps your online attendance or your face-to-face attendance will go up. People will come to class or switch their cameras on, or actually be there even if the cameras are switched off, because attending your lecture watch party actually adds much more to the learning, because there's so many other things going on compared to a student who just watches the video and does none of the embedded activities, or doesn't actually interact with their peers, or doesn't ask questions at the time. The interesting thing too, pretty well towards the end of this here now, is that as the academic, the lecturer, you are changing seats and becoming, not so much, and this is the weird thing, you're watching your own presentation in recorded format, your lecture in recorded format, which you have carefully built, of course, and you can reload each time. But with that same video, every semester, assuming the video never has to be changed, you can have a completely different experience with the students in each cohort. They will pick out different things that they're having challenges with, different ideas that you can activate and have a discussion, press the pause button and talk about. You actually now become much more of a authentic teacher in that sort of idea of belonging and interaction. So that was the final one there, and I won't be here for very much longer. How are we going for time, Matt?
We're doing all right. We're doing all right.
Okay, I won't be much longer. So Matt, you actually touched on this, which was a lovely segue as well. The idea of framing, segmenting, and activating content. Now, we actually have on the ALX website lots of details and information about that. And so I'm just going to paste something into the chat now for you. And it's part of this creating and managing videos collection and this blog post here, 3 simple things you can do to improve your video lectures. But it touches on this idea of framing, segmenting, and activating, not just doing a 1 hour or 45-minute long lecture recording, but going to the next stage, which is to break your video down. And I'm not going to labor these, but it's just a reminder, because you've probably seen these resources, you're probably aware of these things. But breaking down your video into digestible chunks, breakpoints. If it's a lecture, and that's what we're talking about here, not a piece of video to respond to, it is that, but it's also a lecture. You'd want to obviously have your lecture broken up into particular topics, themes, and ideas, and they might present natural breakpoints for you to divide your video up. You're yawning there, Matthew, concerns me.
I'm sorry. It's not aimed at you. I had a late night. Sorry. That's embarrassing.
That's a form of feedback.
No. You're great. I promise.
So the next thing is framing. Now, this triumvirate is important because the framing itself is what I touched on earlier. That is where you put it and how you put it in your Canvas site, or how you plant this within the context of your teaching, because that's what the students are going to understand, why this video? What am I going to do with it? Where am I going to go with it? How's it going to help me with the learning? What are the important things in it? So this is where you have to get very explicit and make no assumptions and relate this to what the students actually have to do in your subject. And then finally, I keep using this term, activate. This is related to the idea of active learning, which you've heard before. What are you going to have your students actually do with those videos? How are they going to build upon? Now, what's the point of you showing this video? You obviously want them to notice something in particular or react to it or use it as inspiration, whatever purpose it serves. You need to spell that out and also create opportunities both around it, if it's embedded in your Canvas site, or during your watch party lecture, with pauses and so forth, or breakout activities, whatever it happens to be. And mind you, the important thing to remember, all of this can happen face-to-face. This is not just for a mixed mode class with students online and in class or fully online. You can do it all there, just in a different way, but you can do this in a face-to-face class. Why not? It's a different way of delivering a lecture. In fact, for me, I think it's a great idea, a great way to actually do more with your lecture, in fact. Okay. It's all good and well, all that theory, but how do you put it into practice? Well, here is a potential. Now, this is not what I'm suggesting you do, but this is here as a very simple example. So you know what I'm talking about when I say, so how would you do a lecture pad, a lecture party? Well, instead of rabbiting on at the lectern for an hour or 40 minutes in a lecture party, watch party format, what you could do, obviously you do usual introductions, contextualizing and so forth, your bookends to the lecture, but now you're doing it in segments, just like that framing and segmenting of your video. You're also doing that with your lecture delivery. So you've got pieces of video, for instance, that deal with different themes. You might just show a bit of it. It might go for a certain period of time, and then you'll just press pause and break out into a discussion. Eventually, of course, to keep people's minds active and whatever, you might still have a break, and then you might come back, because it's a 2-hour class, remember, a class with a lecture. It's a lecture class kind of format. You might come back and then watch another piece of that video or another different video of some kind that deals with different ideas, different concepts, or different inspirational kind of material. And then you might have activities. That's completely up to you what that is, whether it's to go out and do something similar with the camera there and then, or whether it's to, go now into Canvas and have a discussion, or go into your breakout rooms, or do a quiz, or do some group work. Think, pair, share activities. What are the key ideas in this? We're going to come back in a moment, and then you're going to report back, and we're going to talk about, what were the really important things in that thing we just watched. And then you might show another chunk or piece. So you're showing and activating and breaking things up in such a way that there's a lot of changes of channel attention. You're trying not to stick with the same thing for the whole way through. And this is based on this article here, Watch Parties from Brighton University. So that brings me to the end of it.